Welcome to the 32nd episode of Renegade Marketers Live, a show that promises to be long on marketing insights and short on overhyped buzzwords. We'll be drinking in the latest tactics and the coolest gin. Yep, this may be the only live marketing show that also features a gin tasting. This show is being live streamed via our friends at Restream. And if you want to drink along at home, today we're conducting a taste-off between London Dry Gin Bulldog and Príncipe de los Apóstoles gin from Argentina. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. Purpose is a word you hear a lot today in marketing circles as a means of differentiating in a commoditized world. Most of the time, the context is consumer brands, think REI or Patagonia, and they're being recognized for their environmental initiatives. But what you don't hear as much about is the role of purpose for business-to-business brands. Ironically, as I talk about in my most recent book, that's Renegade Marketing, 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands, having an authentic purpose can deliver an even greater competitive advantage for B2B brands, particularly when you consider the wide range of audiences. For example, right now, many B2B brands are in an epic battle to retain and recruit talent that is significantly more likely to want to work for a purpose-driven organization. While there's a lot of data out there supporting the power of purpose, it's not without its detractors. Some who decry the use of purpose as a superficial marketing gimmick, others who challenge the idea as liberal wishful thinking and that business is better off just focusing on quality and price. So in this show, we're not going to treat purpose as a given, but instead make the case discussing the benefits and challenges with a couple of marketers at various stages of the purpose journey. So with that, let's bring on Peter Neiman, who's the CMO of Amalgamated Bank. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Drew. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. Both of us in the Northeast, I think, right? Where are you based, Peter?
I'm coming to you from Harrison, New York.
Harrison, New York. All right. Well, Amalgamated, and you and I've talked about this at length, had a purpose before purpose was a thing. Can you talk about the origins of the bank and how it started with what we now sort of will call purpose?
Sure. Thanks, Drew. Amalgamated Bank was founded in New York in 1923 by the Amalgamated Clothing Workers Union. And at the time, it was a way for Eastern European immigrants to protect their money. They were literally putting it in the mattress, and also to send it back home to their families in Russia and in other areas of Eastern Europe. And it was unique back then because banking was really just for the wealthy. Think Rockefellers and Carnegies, and we were really the first bank that was for working people and not for wealthy people. So we've had a purpose for now 99 years, and that's that really was the genesis of Amalgamated Bank.
Well, and as I think about it, when you say for working people, and that alone, one of the ways to get to purpose is by who you serve, right? But it's also a little bit about how you serve them and the choices that you make, because if you serve these folks, you have to make a decision. And, the definition of strategy is knowing what you say no to. So who do you serve and who don't you serve?
Yeah. So, it's a little bit of a challenge because, most people are unaware what banks do with the money that they receive from their depositors. So when they put it in the bank, about 42% of the people think that the bank is holding it in their account. and that, you know, it's just waiting for them to take it back out. And so what happens is that the way banks make money is we lend and invest it. And how we lend and invest it is really the way that how we narrow our target and how we do that. We use all of the money that we take in for really to lend back out to companies and to invest in things that are socially, racially, economically, or environmentally, for justice. And so, you know, we want people from companies and organizations that really care about where their money is going and how it's lent out and invested, is our target. And that really, from a B2B standpoint, Drew, we have 6 segments that we target. We target unions, and again, the working people in those unions. We target nonprofit organizations. We target foundations. We target human needs organizations, socially responsible businesses, and progressive political organizations and campaigns. And Amalgamated is the bank for many of the Democratic candidates, senators, and Democratic National Committee. So we are proudly liberal, as you had said before, and proudly target what we'll say 50% of America.
And what's so several thoughts come to mind, and one of the things that it's kind of liberating as a marketer when you know exactly who you're targeting, and part of it is and who you're serving, because when you serve a particular market, you get better and better at it. You know what their unique needs are, and you're capable of meeting it. So that all makes sense to me. And one of the things that, you know, in my book, I talk about. I interviewed the CMO of Bank of the West, and that's a bank that certainly, and one of the words that he used, and people don't realize that their money has agency, that they're where their money goes. And I think that is a universal truth that people don't realize it, right? And so it's probably ends up, well, they may not know where the money goes, but at least they know who the money is coming from, right? Right. And that's one of the things that when they made the decision to really focus and say, we're not going to invest in anything that wasn't sustainable, it cost them like 1.8 billion in assets. It was a big hit that they took. And I'm imagining that you probably had to turn some customers down too.
I think that when you take stands, and we're not afraid to take a stand on issues, you know, especially women's rights or workers' rights or on gun safety. And to an extent, there are people who disagree with you. And when you go public with your points of view, will vote by taking away their dollars from you. And I probably can't quantify what we haven't taken in, but I think what we would say is that we have made more money bringing people in than we have lost taking it in. But again, we know that we're not going to get certain segments of the market.
Right. And that's sort of it's built into the business plan. And I'm thinking of Professor Kimberly Whitler right now, who is writing consistently about how businesses probably shouldn't take a stand in her mind, certainly mass brands. And, you know, we get into a debate on it, and I love debating her on it because, you know, being a brand means standing for something. And certainly, now it doesn't mean you have to have a purpose, but in your case, it does. They're connected. Taking a stand aligns with your purpose, and your purpose aligns with taking a stand. So talk a little bit about, because I don't think people realize that a bank could be B2B and could be primarily B2B. But right, when you mention unions and nonprofits, and those are not, you know, there are people at those places like unions, but these are businesses.
Yeah, we want to hold the union's money, the pension funds and the sort of the bigger accounts, the individuals at the union. We'd love them to bank with us, of course, but that's not who we target, and it's not who we market to. But we show that we are aligned with unions. We're the first bank to raise our minimum wage to $15 and then to $20 an hour, and we in our marketing didn't talk about about how we're a great bank for unions, we talked about how important it was for everybody in the financial service industry. Tellers weren't making $15 an hour. So behind the scenes of people at call centers and in other jobs weren't really making a living wage. And so we asked we were the first ones to do that, and we asked the financial service industry to come follow us. And that's how we show sort of support for the areas we care about, is by the issues, not by the products.
So we've talked so far mainly about purpose as a way, that's defined who you serve and where you invest your money. I wonder, can you talk a little bit about link purpose to the marketing that you do and how it sort of comes to life?
Sure. So, like I said, instead of focusing on products and services, I mean, if we have products that are socially responsible products, we'll definitely talk about that. But what we care about are we have 10 issues that we focus on. I won't mention all 10 of them, but the workers' rights is definitely one of them. Women's rights is one. We are all for a woman's right to choose, and we one of our clients is Planned Parenthood of New York, and we'll support them. We'll work with them on social media and on other things. We're on their panels. And really fight for the legislation. And because we're the bank of a lot of Democratic candidates and senators, and we actually use our network to support each other's positions that right now would be considered progressive. And what we do, Drew, in our advertising is we focus on the issues, not on bank products and services. And by that I mean, we're talking about how we're measuring our loans carbon footprints, so that we know that when we take a loan, if it's polluting the planet, if a building is polluting the planet, or if it's not, if it's something that we feel is not working, not supporting carbon neutrality, we won't take the loan. That's where we lose the money, as you had mentioned before. But we're in the middle right now. There'll be a discussion about overdraft fees, and there'll be a draft, and we were the first bank to have free savings accounts, and the first bank in New York to do free checking. We are really trying to serve a community of what we feel is underserved people.
And what's interesting to me on this is that obviously we are in a polarized, political situation where people sort of raise their hands, and this happened, for good or for bad. But I'm wondering, it feels like in your case, since you've been taking a stand for a long time, this may have been really good for you. Yes.
I just say, what I said is that we, our strategy is 99 years old. It truly is. This is where, how we can differentiate from other banks. All of the banks want to come in, and all of the other everybody wants to come in on the purpose. But I think that we have the authentic chops to say, look, we've been socially responsible for 99 years. This is not lip service, or this is not planting trees. Yeah. This is actually doing real, using our voice and our money to stand up for what we believe in.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna come back to you right now. We're gonna go to Julia Goebel, and from Halo Health, we're gonna move from banking to health, and so what could be more important than after your money than your health? So welcome, Julia.
I mean, we're really covering the necessities, I think, and that's the best part of these conversations.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go back to Peter. We're going to have him back on and do a show on what it means to be 100, because there aren't that many brands that are. So, hello, and so
hello.
First of all, how are you?
Well, I'm well, Drew. Thank you. It's great to be on.
And where are you?
So I live in the Chicago area. I'm in the near north suburbs.
Okay. And I know that Halo Health was recently acquired, but can you talk a little bit about the pre-acquisition company and the role that maybe purpose played in your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so first of all, Halo Health was a Bain Capital Ventures and Refinery Ventures backed organization. We were and remain focused on healthcare's clinical collaboration and communication solutions. So within healthcare, it's commonly known that communication is protected and must abide by HIPAA compliance and a number of high-tech compliance regulations. And so Halo fills a space that's vital in that clinicians should be able to communicate just as quickly as you and I do with our devices. Clinicians should be able to share messages, activate traumas, and move to the next most important acute action, sharing information securely, quickly, images, EHR records, and so forth. And so that's the space that Halo Health holds. And the company was acquired late last year by Simpler, a leader in healthcare operations software. And in fact, Simpler is in 9 out of 10 hospitals and has acquired best-of-breed solutions, just like Halo Health, to improve the operations of hospitals and health systems, because nothing's more important than having a great pit crew, so to speak, and that is where Simpler solutions come in.
Yeah, I would imagine, right? I mean, the stress on the healthcare industry, caused by
significant.
Pandemic has been, just beyond imagining. Other than maybe, it's hard to imagine an industry that has been more frontline and more stressed than your industry. And I wonder, because in some ways your solution is so forward looking, and they're saying we're just trying to deal with today. That how has, it must have been, I know that hospitals and all these organizations want to be more efficient. They want to do these things better, and they know that but what happened with all these digital transformation issues during COVID?
Well, certainly. It's a great question. Healthcare has been on a transformation journey for some time, certainly with the introduction of electronic health records, EHR, 10 to 15 years ago, as an information and business priority, more recently, revenue cycle management software. So there's certainly been a lens and an aim to improve the efficiency of healthcare. And then, we as consumers, whether we've had a healthcare experience or, to your point, workforce matters. Most of us know or our friends or have family members who are clinicians, clinical staff, involved in the ancillary roles around the field. And so it's no doubt that the pandemic put quite an emphasis and a pressure point on it, and more than we've ever seen in our lifetime, certainly. And so not only is digital transformation important, but often solutions that help keep the lights on are important. And so that's areas we talk about with respect to staffing solutions, with respect to time and attendance and ensuring that we have coverage. These are all the things that hospital administrators are struggling with right now. Never has the workforce been under so much duress and for such an extended time. And so one of the things that's obviously front and center for hospital administrators and team members of all stripes is, how do I help my team members get to the next day from both a stress and wellness perspective?
So, we know that healthcare, in a sense, is in theory has a purpose built in. It's obviously to provide the health to help. But Karen, what is your sort of, do you see yourself? We can just go to Halo. Was there an articulated purpose for the organization?
Yeah, certainly. I'll start with Halo, and then I think and I'd love to kind of just share my personal experiences too. Halo was founded by clinicians. In fact, 2 oncologists discovered that there was a need for a better way to connect, especially interdisciplinary medicine and cancer care is at the heart of that. It's not only nutrition, but there's radiology and all of the modalities brought to bear. And these oncologists felt that there had to be a better way. And so that was sort of the genesis of Halo. And Halo always was a purpose-driven organization in that regard. We have to make it easier. We have to make it better and quicker to connect with the information you need to be able to make clinical decisions. And so throughout Halo's history, in the decade of its growth, it was always embedded. In fact, we'd have segments during team gatherings, during company meetings, where we would have a moment called Connect to Purpose. And the Connect to Purpose moment was where we would share, for example, a clinical experience and how our solution was involved in it. And it's easy to point to many, but also when you have a software engineer, financial team members who aren't maybe as close to the care delivery, it's really helpful within a company to say, here's how your work matters and connects to what our customers use. And so Halo found those Connect to Purpose moments, great ways for us to say, at the end of the day, the work that you do in coding or the work that you do in accounts payable ties back to putting a device in clinicians' hands that helps them save lives. So that was a very purposeful, part of our DNA at Halo. And as we've grown and become part of Simpler likewise has the opportunities for us each to connect to purpose.
Interesting. So in some ways, and in my book, I talk about big P purpose and a little P purpose. And big P purpose is really, let's save the world. And we're going to, as an organization, we're going to, and little P purpose is, it's like Tough Book, which is, it's a ruggedized notebook that won't break when you're out in the field doing something that requires that kind of thing. And it's okay. I mean, I don't think every company, and what I heard that's sort of interesting and in many ways is, it's a little P purpose connected to a big P purpose. Your organization helps connect people, connect clinicians, connect these folks so that they can do the things that they want to do, the things that really matters. So it's kind of interesting. There's sort of a functional purpose, and then there's the greater purpose, right? Is that a fair articulation?
I think that's exactly right. And all of those management studies suggest that when employees feel connected to the work, that there is more satisfaction that can help employee retention. And I think both as an outward and overt activity, it's important to connect individuals to the greater purpose, the capital P purpose, but also just on a day-to-day basis to make sure that what I did today has a greater meaning. And I think we're seeing that a lot with the Great Resignation, people choosing with their hearts as well as their career.
And so this is the interesting part of this is, so if you are an organization that has purpose and is doing, and employees feel connected to that purpose, then in theory, recruiting and retention is better, easier for you. Has it been?
Well, it's interesting. And this is such a fascinating time, right? We're seeing in a lot of the coverage, a lot of the stories are saying the Great Resignation is not so much, I don't want to be a marketer or I don't want to do X. It's that I need a change. And so it's been interesting to see that after, in some cases, 24 months of keeping the lights on in their roles, people are saying, I need to take a pause and look elsewhere. But we're also seeing a lot of people choose to try something else. And so I think that's really fascinating. I've got a woman within my group who was a physical therapist and decided she wanted to be in some other, non-clinical part of healthcare, and chose a new role and is involved in our business development efforts. And I think there's lots of examples of that. But I would be remiss if I didn't say we are always hiring and growing, and please check out Simpler Careers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because as a growth organization, you want to go here, which means you're always hiring in, and there's, folks falling off the back of the truck for any number of reasons. And we've talked about this in Huddles a lot, is that, the irony of work from home is that there's no commute time where you get to think on your own and just be chill. And what happened is we all donated extra hours to work. And so the Great Resignation to me is as much a part of just, there's jobs out there and I'm tired.
I think that's right. And I think we'll also see a little bit of settling, we're seeing a lot of movement right now. I think we'll come to a crest and things will start to ease. But it's true. The deep thinking is something that I know a lot of employees and employers are striving for, giving team members moments in between the Zoom calls, in between the Teams calls, to have that deeper work, that deeper time.
Got it. So let's bring Peter back and let's talk a little bit about I mean, Peter, in your case, you had a purpose for 99 years, but I imagine as you've been there several years now, you needed to find new ways to articulate it or new sort of something to bring it fresh. And I'm imagining Julia similarly. Talk a little bit about whatever process or your thinking process for how you get to purpose. Because I know a lot of the folks that are listening say, I love the idea. I wish I worked for a purpose-driven corporation. I don't know where to start in helping to sort of find it and then get, momentum around it. Do either of you have experience, either at your current job or past jobs, where you really help the organization sort of see its purpose?
I'll start, Drew, and thinks it's, one of the things that you do, obviously you can do actions that it just speaks louder than words. A lot of people do it by who they donate to or who they partner with and what they do. So it's an easy way to do that. Or, buy our products and we'll plant trees, or buy our products and we'll do something that's good for the environment. And I think that's where the greenwashing comes in, that you're always doing that. And real environmental activists don't even know whether planting trees is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on where you plant them. So it's one of those things. So what I would say though is that you can always partner with somebody, or sponsor or partner with people. We at the bank this year partnered with the WNBA Players Association. The WNBA, the women of the WNBA are really amazing at speaking their minds and speaking up for equal rights, for women's rights, LGBTQ rights, equal pay, everything that they believe in. It's a league that's 75% women of color, probably 50% LGBTQ. And it's one of those things where everything that they believe in, we believed in as a bank. And so one of the things that we did was sort of work with them on a program to help them with the nonprofits that they believed in, and work there. So that's one way to do it when you don't have the chops yourself. We don't even have the awareness. And Julia, we're coming to Chicago. So and Amalgamated Bank, where we just bought the Amalgamated Bank of Chicago.
Right.
And so, but it's one of those things where our awareness for the world is under 5%. For even in New York, we're under 30%, Drew, and we've been here 99 years. So we need to get somebody to, we need to get to build that up as well. And being B2B, I don't need 100% awareness. I just need the right awareness.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So I am going to actually now spend a second and talk about CMO Huddles. So let's just talk about that. If you don't mind, I'm going to plug CMO Huddles for a second. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is an invitation-only subscription service that brings together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. One CMO described Huddles as timely conversations with smart peers in a trusted environment, while another called it a cross between an expert workshop and a therapy session. Now, Peter, Julia, you both been in some huddles. Feel free to share your experience. Did that sound about right?
It sure did. And I think what's important is, each of us in our roles often are the sole or the terminal marketer among many other business functions. I think it's really important for us to have peer relationships, peer groups that allow us to sharpen, right, and understand what other challenges you're facing. And I think that's where the therapy piece comes in. But additionally, to hear what's leading, what they've tried, what's working, what's not. It's really important collaboration.
Love it. Peter, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Drew. First of all, thanks for calling us elite. That'll be a first, and appreciate that. Secondly, I find, I'm going to echo that it enables you to be vulnerable, because in your own organization you don't want to say what you don't know, whereas here it's a place where you can unabashedly say, I don't know how to do this, could somebody please help me? And I think that's incredibly valuable for CMOs.
I love it. Okay. Well, if you're listening and you're a B2B CMO that can share, care, and dare with the best of them, visit CMOHuddles.com or hit me up on LinkedIn, Drew Neiser. I'm on LinkedIn pretty visibly, and see if you qualify for a guest pass. We just happen to have some recorded comments from some other huddlers to play while we go and grab our gin and chill glasses for the gin tasting. So stay with us.
You know, a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. There's great value in the CMO huddle.
This one has consistently brought value to the table. There's value at every step.
The continuity of familiar faces is also quite nice. You can start to form some deeper relationships.
It's a nice break in your week from a lot of other meetings.
You know, none of us is as smart as all of us. Every huddle I go away with one idea that I didn't know before.
We have implemented a number of things that have made a significant amount of difference.
It's a really high caliber group of very passionate CMOs.
Share these best practices, but do it in a circle of trust.
It's an amazing group of people.
Jackie has constantly reminded me that we need a call to action on everything we do. So if you are a CMO that can share and care and dare with the best of them, visit CMOHuddles.com. How's that for a call to action, Jackie? Oh my gosh. Well, here we are. And this is, by the way, oh, the wrong one. I'll be right back with you. I got last week's.
All right, well, I'll take the floor here. So we have two gins today. One is Bulldog and the other is Principe de los Apóstoles, Mate Gin, which I hope I said right. Which one did you grab, Drew?
I got the Old Tom from Gin Lane.
Perfect. The Bulldog?
But I've got the here. This is what the bottle looks like, Apostales.
Okay, cool. So we'll start with the Apostales. I'll just give you a little bit of background on this gin. It is from Argentina. It was crafted by mixologist Tato Giovannoni and master distiller Rolando Hibling, and it's one of Latin America's first premium gins, using only Argentinian ingredients, including yerba mate, peppermint, eucalyptus, and grapefruit. So this should be like a really nice, minty, flavorful herbal gin.
I love this. Oh my God.
Is it fruity?
It's just really interesting. It doesn't have a bite to it at all. It's got, I mean, you can smell the fruit.
The botanicals are beautiful. It has a great aroma.
Yeah, it's great. It's distilled. I can't remember the name of the pot, but it's from like the 18th century. And they make it in 200 liter batches. So they're like really small batches of gin. It's super nice. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This would be an incredible martini. It's super smooth. The juniper hits you at the very, very end, which is it's not one of those that's fast forward to the juniper. Okay. All right. Well, that's that. All right. Let's try the Bulldog now. So this was developed by Anshuman Vohra. He was born in India and the son of a career diplomat. He later became in the financial world. And after establishing his career there, he started Bulldog. He launched it in the US in 2007, and it went global in Spain in 2009 during Spain's gin boom, which I don't actually have any facts about that. So I'm just assuming gin kind of picked up there in 2009. So this one I read is very enjoyable in any cocktail that you want to put it in, and it's nice to sip straight up as well. What do you think?
I'm going to let someone else go ahead.
Yeah, very smooth, very easy on the tongue. The botanicals are not quite as forward as the other, but it has a nice finish.
Yeah, I mean, it's in my mind, it's dull compared to the other one, right? I mean, it'd be fine at G&T and so forth, but it doesn't. It's well balanced and it's certainly sippable, but it's dull.
I actually like this, but I'm a gimlet drinker. Mm-hmm. So to me, I can't wait to put the lime juice in it. But I actually think the first one, I totally understand your martini thing. That one is so smooth. I'm not drinking anymore, else I won't be able to make it to the next half of the.
Yes, no, I get it, and that's I've had to stop myself. But
Melissa, you mentioned yerba mate, and I don't know if our botanical expert is here.
She's not, but
you are going to fill in for our botanical. What the heck is yerba mate?
So yerba mate is an herbal tea made from leaves and twigs of the mate plant. It has like a really difficult Latin name that I can't pronounce. It's harvested in Argentina and other parts of South America. Yerba means herb, and in Spanish, while mate refers to the hollowed out gourd that the tea is traditionally served in. It's really cool. It's like steeped like with full leaves tea, and the gourd has you use a straw that keeps, it has a kind of like filter to keep the leaves from coming up through the straw. And fun fact, yerba mate has the same caffeine level as a cup of coffee.
Oh my God. So depending on how much your mate has, we can drink this. I should have some of this gin in my coffee tomorrow then.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Okay. So we should have a thumbs up, thumbs down. Which was your favorite, Bulldog or Apóstoles,
maybe.
Apóstoles. Sí, cómo no. Go ahead, Peter, pick.
Apóstoles.
And I'll go Apóstoles too.
All right, it's a 3
ding,
for.
ding. Got
Sorry,
a winner.
There it is. All right, Melissa, thank you. We'll get back to the show. All right. So we started to talk about this a little bit about recruiting and retention. And, you know, in my book, I talk about this a lot in the just thinking from a B2B standpoint. You have sort of 3 primary targets: employees, customers, and prospects. And all of those have influence on each other. But when we think about purpose, and Julia, you mentioned this, that purpose can play this role for recruiting and retention. And again, so I'm wondering, Peter, from your standpoint, I'm imagining that employees align with the brand. I mean, it would be hard to be a Trumper and, for example, and work at the bank.
Yeah, I think, you know, we definitely appeal to people who share and align with the values. There's no question about that. And, you know, I think that it's especially true for when we're recruiting and bringing in new people, that it is definitely a selling point, as, you know, as younger people want to work for a company that isn't afraid to share its values or wear it on its sleeve. You know, the people who are coming in now are much more excited about that and want to live the brand and want us to do more than what we're doing.
Interesting. I could see that. It's like, yeah, we got to do more. We got to do more. And so how do they discover it? And what is there an inculcation process where you sort of bring that to them and educate new employees on the brand?
Yeah. You know, I think that our biggest source of new people is the word of mouth, and we actually source a lot of employees from the organizations and the activism community for people who have come in contact with us who are either clients or prospects and want to and like what we're doing. There is not a formal onboarding process on Mission. It's part of a much bigger onboarding process that talks about what your benefits are and to make sure that you know the rules of banking and that kind of thing. But realistically, everything that we do is mission driven, and so there, you know, you get indoctrinated in the 99-year history of this and what we've done in the past and our history of responsibility. But I wish, and part of our plan is to get a much more formal training program or a much more formal onboarding program for new employees.
To sort of bring that spirit through the process so that they could be apostles, if you will, to go to our favorite gin brand of the day. And Julia, as I was thinking about it and listening to Peter's answer, I mean, knowing that you've had, we'll call it industry normal turnover in this crazy time, I'm wondering, what do you see moving forward in terms of training and helping employees get to know this better to try to make it stickier?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that simpler leadership is really mindful of is that it has grown through acquisition. So you have team members who've arrived through different means. They may have been part of a company that was purchased and integrated in, which is different than when you make a career choice to join a company. And so we're mindful of that. And specifically since the company has grown so much over the last 12 to 24 months, one of the areas of focus in 2021 was establishing and rolling out core values, training embedded throughout the team, and in fact, launching it combined with a larger internal communications strategy. And we have a fabulous internal comms team that is mindful of all of those changes that have occurred. We also are very intentional about the way that team members join and some of the onboarding post-acquisition. And then, of course, for team members who join the traditional way, not only is it part of, you might say, the onboarding, and I like the way Peter framed that, it's part of a larger story. But we know there's also, ongoing moments to emphasize, where someone has, reached true north, or we have, teamwork embodied. And so we work in ways to acknowledge that and recognize that as part of employee recognition.
And I'm so glad you mentioned values as part of this conversation. And there's a great article that we'll share in the notes later on, unless we have it, Melissa, that was a little bit argumentative about purpose and said, I think a lot of people are getting purpose wrong. It's too superficial and it's not rooted in any sort of core values of the organization. So it's what he used the term purpose washing. And I know that's sort of what you, Peter, were talking about with greenwashing, but this is on a larger level when you start to say, yes, we're a purpose-driven organization, but our values are really sell and profit at any price. So I'm wondering, and Peter, in where do values fit in from this standpoint for the bank?
Well, I think that it starts with mission and vision and values, and I know that marketers love those things, but realistically, we have a mission to be a socially responsible bank that advances positive change. And the first thing that we did was we became a B Corporation, which is a third party, really. B Labs looks at all of our internal workings and all of the ways that we do business, and not just our ESG, but really everything that we're doing, and determines that as a business we're a good business, that we are a good actor, a good that we behave well, and that we put purpose and the planet and our employees and our community as important as our shareholders. And so there is an opportunity to get, and obviously we get rated also by companies who rate us on ESG as on our stock as well. But to an extent, our mission and vision and values are for our internal employees are what we say, you are living, you have to live this, and we actually evaluate people on how they do on some of those values.
And so many things I want to unpack there. Just first of all, converting to a B Corp. I don't know how many B Corps there are, but that's a big deal. Yeah.
There's only 4,000 of them, Drew. There's 4,000 there, and 3 years ago there were 2,000. So it's growing right now, and some of the big companies, Athleta, Dan, and some of the Patagonia, as you mentioned before, some of the bigger companies are doing it as well. It's much harder for a bigger company to live up to those standards sometimes, but more and more it's going to become, it's the good housekeeping seal of, not to date ourselves here, but it is really a third party validation of what you're doing.
Right, as of a focus on a triple bottom line.
That's
right. In a sense, which I think is so interesting. And I wonder if in some ways, if you're not a B Corp, can you really talk about purpose? That's a really interesting question. You don't have to answer that, Julie, because I don't think you guys are a B Corp. But it is an interesting one, because it does mean that every aspect of the business is committed to sort of a certain level of values and, you know, goodness. Interesting. Julie, any thoughts on that whole, where we've been with the values?
Yeah, you know, certainly. I think the point that was shared is that it's not enough to simply put it on a wall, put it on a plaque, and I think it's in the way we embody and live out, you know, live out the true values in our day to day. You know, I have, for example, a mouse pad that has our core values on it. It gives me an opportunity to just sort of be reminded of it, and I think, you know, team members look to us to see how we're living out the core values, whether they're in the framework of the work that we do or the way that we behave. It's important to do so. But as we're talking about B Corps, I find it really fascinating. I think it's really interesting, given what we do from a connection to clinical care, to explore what might make sense for us as we continue to grow.
There you go. Okay. Well, and I love the fact that you shared that thing, because this is the moment in the show when we ask, what would Ben Franklin say? And what's so interesting is that you just sort of said this, that it can't be just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk. It just can't be words when we're talking about purpose. So the quote that I'm going to share is, words may show a man's wit, but actions his meaning. Thank you, Ben. Well said. So let's talk about it now. We've talked about employees. Let's talk about the role with customer retention and how that works, and in the role that purpose plays. And maybe, Peter, you can speak to that.
Yeah, sure. You know, we do a study. We do, a Net Promoter Score study or satisfaction study every year with customers. But one of the questions that we asked is why you came to the bank, and we realized that that it is one of those things where when you come to the bank, if you've come to the bank for mission, we have to deliver on making sure that they stay here, and and for us, it's a program for us to make sure that all of our clients know the good work of where their own money is being invested or where their own money is being lent to. So whether it's our CSR report or whether it's an impact lending study or what it is, we're trying to communicate to our customers just where their money is going so that they know that we're doing the right thing with it. And then we're asking them to say, look, you're banking with us. Can you also loan or invest with us as well? And the idea is not just retaining, but also to help sell them.
Interesting. And as you were talking about a certain level of transparency, I couldn't help but think of Charity Water, which is incredible charity that basically drills wells in places that don't have water. And if you give them money, and no matter how much you give them, you'll get a video that'll show you when the well that you funded gets thing. I mean, you're so connected all the way through it. And I don't think in the financial world, I don't think very many people do that. And it's such a vivid thing, and people are shocked and a little bit surprised. And I think with a nonprofit, when you're giving money to them, you kind of want to know, but in a bank, you just don't think about it. So interesting. Okay, Julia, what about from your standpoint, purpose connecting to retention?
Yeah, like a lot of software companies, we measure NPS and customer satisfaction, CSAT instruments, but we also have ability to reflect on usage. And I think one of the things that's interesting about usage patterns is to see where they align with customer satisfaction. And that's one area that Halo certainly focuses on. And as we grow and join the larger organization, we'll be part of the calculus too. There's lots of ways to discern, is a customer happy or not. And in particular, it's not simply one of those elements. It's all of those elements. And in a different way, we learn a lot about how our clients are doing through other other relationships that we have with them. One of our offerings is around vendor credentialing and the visitors to hospitals. And so we've certainly seen some interesting trends to our customer hospitals as the pandemic has ebbed and flowed. And so that's been an interesting signal that we can use to monitor, how things are going at an organization with respect to how many visitors they permit or how many vendor credentials are requested. And so, certainly one of the things I've always loved about software is the ability to, have additional insight.
Interesting. Okay. So we've talked about employees. We've talked about customers and the role there. I mean, clearly part of this is you're putting forward a purpose. If people agree with that purpose, they're more inclined to come to you and stay with you. But we really haven't talked about it from an acquisition standpoint. And I'm interested in sort of where does that play? Because every CMO is faced with the reality of, well, we have growth targets and you got to help fill the pipeline. And, and I'm just curious, as you look at it, maybe Julia, you can talk a little bit about, does that mean, because a lot of times this thing gets down to, well, what's your features and functionality? You're selling software and, you got to get it. We got to do the demo.
Sure.
When does sort of purpose sort of start to get in the way of the sales process, if ever?
Yeah, I would think about it this way, so certainly as I have transitioned from my role as Chief Marketing Officer of Halo Health into Simpler, I'm now assuming a role as Head of Growth Marketing, reporting to our CMO. And so I have a unique perspective in that is now part and parcel exactly what I'm focused on. How do we grow? How do we help new prospects see the value of our solutions enough to take the step and to participate in a demo process, a sales process? How do we help existing customers see the value and then consider a second, a third, a fourth solution? And so, I think about this a couple of ways. Certainly every buying committee, and frankly, we see a lot of buying committee decisions in our solution sales. Every buying committee is looking for social proof. Have they done what we needed to do? Have they had this experience in other customer settings? Have they been recognized as a leader in their area, in their quadrant? And have they, performed in the way that, they've expected? So we know that analysts, third party, and other coverage is important to us. But additionally, there can be other ways that you look at what you do. In a prior role as CMO at a benefits administration software organization, we knew because our buyers were HR leaders that the factors around our customer satisfaction were also related to employee satisfaction. So we focused very much on how were we perceived on Glassdoor and comparably, because HR decision makers want to hire companies that are good to their people. And so I think depending on your category, there can be a few different ways you might look at purpose and acquisition strategies.
Yeah, and I think one of the points in the article that Melissa shared that is interesting is, look, if you have a crappy product or your service is bad, no purpose is going to save you.
Hard to overcome.
Those are really sort of fundamentals. And so if quality isn't up to competitive standards or somehow or other your price is out of whack, you're in trouble. But in so many cases, I mean, we could take a bank, for example, and we just happen to have one here. The differences in the products are kind of minute. Yeah. So this is where I would think that purpose could really actually, both in terms of defining who you serve and where the money goes, could have a big impact. Peter?
Yeah, I think it's true. We, as in the aforementioned study, we found that 66% of the people who join our bank come because of the purpose. We also found that when they rate us, even the people who rate us poorly won't leave the bank because they believe in our purpose. So even when our products aren't as good as some of the bigger banks or as that, we get a pass because they like what we stand for and what we're doing. So to an extent, it does it does enable us to, first of all, bring new customers in, which is what you're saying. It is the reason that 2/3 of our people come to the bank, and then it actually makes them more stickier than people, because they'll put up with average or below average experience or problems, and give us a pass sometimes if they believe.
And what's so interesting here, and that I'm sort of put a punctuation point on, is this is the thing that's most important to them.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember a case history of another bank, and I don't know if it was a Commerce Bank, but they just went all in on convenience and hours and being right. And they had the worst interest rates in America.
Yeah.
But the consumer didn't care, because the one reason they went to them was the convenience. And so it's so interesting and so important that if you're all in on your purpose, and that purpose aligns with a certain group of people, it can buy you a lot. It's so interesting. So I'm just curious, and maybe Julia, you have a point of view on this, but in that article he mentioned purpose washing. How do companies avoid this idea of purpose washing?
I think it's an important lens, right? We don't want to ever, as marketers, represent something that is different than the core. And so that's one of the things I think about as a marketer. Let's ensure that what we are presenting is consistent with our own experiences, with our own, company's delivery. And so that's something I'm always mindful of. I think the example of greenwashing is tricky, but there are examples all over where it's been done well, and so we want to, be mindful of simply putting a beautiful campaign around it is not the same as living out a purpose and demonstrating those core values. And so I think it's something that a lot of marketers think about, and how do we, ensure that we're not only, standing up a purpose that's believable and executable, but ensuring that it is durable. It's not just a campaign this year. It's something much larger than that.
Yeah, I think that's the point, that this isn't not just a marketing thing. And that's, if there's one lesson from this show, it is an organizational thing. Marketing gets to express it. They might be the most visible of it, but if employees aren't trained and don't believe in it, customers aren't sort of acknowledge it and recognize it, then it is this notion of purpose washing. I did want to mention, for the folks that have made it all the way this far, if you're listening to this or you hear it later, the chapter in my book, chapter 3, Pounce on Your Purpose, talks about both big P and little p purpose. And I'm more than happy to email you that chapter. So just hit me up on LinkedIn, say, hey, Drew, I want chapter 3, Pounce on Your Purpose, and we'll do it. And I'm really interested in your input and how you're bringing purpose to your organization. Last words, Peter, any sort of advice for your fellow CMOs who may be just starting on this journey?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be optional down the road. I think it's the way that all brands are going to differentiate themselves now, especially those that don't have a highly differentiated product. And especially if you're a public company right now, we're all being evaluated on our ESG practices and standards. And I just would say that if you haven't started on this journey, it's really to your detriment right now. We've got to find a way to have something unique to support and to find that purpose.
Go for it. Okay, Julia, last word.
Yeah, I think we've always talked about how customers have a choice, but I think it's really important we're mindful that employees have a choice now more than ever. And so it's incumbent on us as leaders to ensure that the time that they're with us while we are in the same orbit, how are we helping them find their best selves or find their purpose in the work that they do? I don't think we can lose sight of that. It's too important.
Love it. Okay, great. Well, Peter, Julia, thank you. You're both great sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we'll be talking about B2B branding with Heather Salerno, Marshall Poindexter, and maybe a surprise guest. Cue the music.
Renegade Marketers Live is produced by Melissa McCaffrey. Our intern is Laura Parkin. Our botanical expert is Nicole Hernandez. For show notes, past episodes, and the latest on my new book, Renegade Marketing 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands, please visit renegade.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.